So on Wednesday, the senator representing Kano South Senatorial District, Kawo, Somalia, disclosed in an interview with BBC Hausa that each Nigerian senator earns at least 21 million naira monthly in running costs, salaries, and allowances, in a country where a worker's minimum wage is 70,000 naira. The issue of the senator's remuneration resurfaced recently when former President Olusegun Obasanjo accused the Senate of fixing new salaries and allowances for themselves, contrary to the recommendation of the Revenue Mobilization Fiscal Allocation Commission, and that's the RMAFC. Now, if you don't know the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, it's an agency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that oversees the revenues accruing to and disbursement of such funds from the federal account. The body also ensures that there is conformity and equity in the nation's revenue allocation formula. And so these allegations are very concerning, as Mr. Somalia, who's a member of the New Nigeria People's Party, said his monthly salary is less than 1 million naira, but still, when the running cost is included, he earns at least 21 million naira monthly, like his colleagues. The Senate has since responded to these claims by its member that the funds that the senator referred to are neither his salary nor personal allowance. They said, noting that these funds are allocated for the daily operation of senators' offices and other statutory officials. They also provided for constituency office staff, oversight functions, and community engagements. That's what the statement said. And so they went on to note that these funds are not static. They are provided for in the annual budget and must be retired with proof of genuine expenditure. They're not personal allowances or salaries for the legislators. So I thought long and hard about this. And one question came to mind. What kind of workforce and office does a sitting senator have to need 20 million naira for running cost? Is the rent of the office monthly? What kind of projects and engagement do they have going on that they need that kind of money? Do they hold town hall meetings with their constituency monthly, weekly, biannually, by 6 months in a year? What exactly is this running cost? How many staff does one senator actually need? But what's clear is that there will always be a disconnect between the ruling class and the everyday Nigerian. That's my earring. Organized labor pushed for months for an upward revenue of the minimum wage to be at best 200,000 naira or 250,000 naira monthly. But it fell to what has now been tagged as a starvation wage of 70,000 naira. A harsh reality that most Nigerians earn less than 100,000 naira a month, struggling to make ends meet as the cost of living continues to rise. And so I have come up with a solution. You know, one thing about me, I always think about solutions. Let's think about it. How about we clamor for a running cost? Yes, let us all clamor for a running cost. The running cost of living the harsh realities of being a Nigerian in this renewed hope era. A running cost for the high insecurity in this country that 20 medical students were kidnapped in Benue. The high cost of food, or better yet, healthcare. So Nigerians will stop for once resorting to self-medication or even trying to get cheaper, untested alternative treatment. And oftentimes they are traditional and unsafe. So let me ask, what will be your running cost? Mine is simple. Mine is the running cost of surviving Nigeria, queuing up, every single time. I wonder what Mazino's running cost is. And I wonder what
my running cost would be that I saved you.
Thank you.
She owes me.
What is your running cost, Mazino?
70,000 naira.
Well, join us today. What is your running cost? Let us know. I, for one, I know my running cost, and literally it's to survive Nigeria and stop queuing for petrol every single day. So join us to join me, damsel in distress, and my knight in shiny armor, Mazino Appeal, for some extra goodness this morning. Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
And you're welcome back. And no, it's not tit for tat. I'm not trying to pay back. And there will be no, incidents of falling trinkets now. I'm here for news strips. And of course, I have my trusty co-host, Judith Atibi, who's going to be joining me for that one. Judith, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
I hope you've...
No, the trinkets are secure this time, I promise. All set and good to go.
In any case. Nice one. In any case, let's do the strips. This morning, we're starting with that because we've got a couple of them from over 7 days ago that we'd like you guys to see. And the references that were made from the Olympics, well, you'll see them inside of here. So stay tuned. Now, let's start with our very first news strip for today. Got some music going in there. So, for today, we're starting with Business Day. And of course, we all know that the Olympics ended only a couple of weekends ago. Last weekend, I think, Judith, wasn't it? It ended last weekend.
Yes, it was.
And we had so much to tell about the Olympics, especially over how much was spent, and we came back with a zero. Some people might not know the importance of an Olympic to a country's, reputation or even economy. But I'll tell you, but what was your fair, let me say, evaluation of the Olympics, Judith?
I think that for the athletes to have gotten to the point that they did, it was from self-determination and perseverance and wanting to compete on a world stage. It's from a dedication from someone who continues to build on their craft. And I must commend them against all odds, against a system that is lacking in infrastructural development, that over the years have refused to invest in development when it comes to sports. And you know, to see them go that far and be on a world stage, I mean, it takes a lot of guts and courage. So well done to them.
Exactly.
To me, they got a medal.
Yeah, they did. They did. And it's something very interesting. In any case, we went, we ate, we conceded. That's an indication of how much exactly was spent. And of course, the sportsman.
Is that who I think it is?
Yeah, of course. Who else do you think it is?
Oh, my goodness. It's my Uncle Eno.
Kudos to the artist, by the way, for always capturing the very essence of the characters that we're talking about each weekend. But this was from the week from before, if I'm not mistaken. But interesting one. Let's move on now to the Daily Trust.
Wait. Hang on. Before you move on.
What?
Can we take it back to the last photograph?
Okay. What do you want to tell?
Notice how the pictures are set, the bows are set like the circles of the Olympics. Brilliant.
Judith,
brilliant.
I did not see that.
Brilliant. It's just so, I adore this person.
Oh, wow. Talk about talent. That's beautiful. There for you.
Talented.
All right, now let's move on to the Daily Trust, shall we? Without the music. Now, this is a very interesting one. Don't worry, you'll soon be able to swallow. Now, we're coming from a system where things were hard, but little did we know that the pepper you were seeing, they will take away that pepper. And this is an indication of it. The artist here, the artist though, not me, is indicating, or using that character there to indicate the president, currently that's President Tinubu, telling you that don't worry, this stone that Buhari left for you, we'll soften it small. But here, let's add suffer soup or hardship soup. What did you think, Judith?
So let me I'm going to talk as a Nigerian and not as a journalist.
You're still a journalist, though.
Because, again, I took off the hat of a journalist, and now this is me as a Nigerian. It's tight, and this depiction is pretty much what I'm certain that every Nigerian, whether home or abroad, is dealing with. Those that are abroad, they might feel like they're away from the issues, but they have family back home who are constantly, crying to them, and they need help, and they constantly have to send, and it takes a toll on them, and also back home. So yeah, it's sad but true.
we sympathize with everybody. We're also suffering. So I don't know if sympathy is the
I don't
word.
know.
We're all in this together.
Sorry for Nigeria.
Let's check out the Punch newspaper from last week, okay? See this one here. Okay, fine. Now, this is an indication of everything that the president and government is trying to do to soften the impact of the hardship that we're going through with very many little policies being put in place. In this case, in Ekiti State, Kabiyesi, live forever. I can't wait to enjoy my pounded yam again. Ekiti, that's the Ekiti State, what's it called? Where Ekiti Monarchs slashes food prices, bans Traders Association. If we put a cap on how much profit you can make for your produce, I don't know how that's going to fare for the farmers, however. That's my personal query regarding this. If you keep putting caps, policies that put caps on either the farmers or the traders or this and that, it would help the consumer, but then again, the farmers themselves are consumers as well, and they have to make a profit to be able to, make more crop.
Yes.
It's like an Ouroboros.
What gives? It makes you wonder who are the persons that are coming up with these policies and these ideas.
But it's not all bad. It's not all bad. I'm just in the middle,
Isn't it all bad?
No, it's not all bad. I mean, come on. I mean, we got to put a cap on these things sometimes.
No, but
that's me speaking from both sides of the mouth.
Because I'm like, wait, that goes against all the laws of economy when it comes to a free market, which is what we do here. It's capitalism in and of itself. So we're trying to put a cap. It begs how then, like you said, how would they make profits and the rest? Hopefully, just solve the insecurity and solve all the just solve insecurity and then make sure that our our agricultural sector is mechanized. We have 24-hour power supply. The transportation is solved, so there's no kidnapping on the road. They're able to store their foods properly. Irrigation. Those are the issues. Not putting a cap on food prices.
You said it all. Yesterday, we had a story where the doctors were actually protesting for the missing Ganiat, Dr. Ganiat, if you remember, from months ago. And I never thought I'd see the day when doctors would be protesting about security. Apparently, they're also victims as well. Yeah. We also had the students, the student doctors.
20 medical students on their way to Enugu for a conference, and they got kidnapped at Otukpo.
You're correct.
State.
Sort security out. I think every other thing will kind of like... You'll feel the effect economically. I think that's just it.
It is. Well, Mazzino, thank you so much for the strips.
You're kicking me out already. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. It's okay. Tell you what, it indeed is the end for news strips, but we've got our first big story coming your way. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about the little wins. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. This is Breakfast Extra. Welcome. Now, Nigeria's inflation rate has finally shown signs of cooling off after a relentless climb over the past year. And I know you know that already. Now, in July 2024, Nigeria's inflation rate fell to 33.4% from 34.19% in June, marking the very first time a decline since December 2022.
So the question is, what does this mean for the economy? And what factors have contributed to this slowdown or traffic jam? Who will explore these questions and more with our guest that joins us live today. She's Nabila Mohammed, a research analyst from Chapel Hill, Denham, and she joins us live right here in the studio. Nabila, good morning to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Good morning, Nabila.
Thank you. Yes. I would like to start first for you to ask about, the numbers. Let's start with the headline in figures. Nigeria's inflation rate, it fell to 33.4% in July. And one has to ask, what do you believe are the key factors behind this decline that we have much awaited for since December 2022?
So I would start by saying that the numbers are a pleasant surprise to us, at least in-house, based on our estimates.
If you're surprised, imagine.
It's a pleasant surprise. I mean, we did expect that it would peak at some point between months of June and July, but now that we have seen it peak in June and now slow down in July, it's a positive surprise, so we're happy about that. And as you know, our inflation is largely as a result of, it's largely food-driven. And what that simply means is that if there's any positive slowdown in the food inflation, it would affect at least the entire CPI, that entire headline, and that's what we noticed happened in the month of July. We did see food inflation dropped to 39.53%, as against the 40% that we saw in the month of June. And that's as a result of the slower rate in increase in prices of things around the gari, millet, wheat. Those are some of the things that really contributed to the slowdown that we saw in the food inflation and now impacted the overall headline inflation in the month of July.
I was going to ask you about those the details about what kind of foods actually were factors for that food inflation decrease. However, I and Judith had a small discussion when we're talking about the new strips with the Ekiti State putting cap on certain food items. Does that help in any way if there's a policy that says you can't sell tomatoes more than so and so price? Isn't there a whiplash effect on some other, economic indices?
So the concept of price control is a very tricky one. We would not want the government telling you as a business that wants to make money out of your business that you should not sell more than this. It also depends on how much input cost that is required for your business. So that cap is not something, of course, that would be able to be sustained over a period of time, because we expect that businesses are in the business because they want to make money. So all the issues around the things that would feed into their input cost has to be addressed for a business to be willing to even say they would bring down their prices. But it is not a hard rocket science that, okay, because this is this, then the prices will go down.
In the short term, it could be helpful for consumers. In the long term, bad for the economy.
Exactly.
See, I told you.
I'm not
I'm an economist all of a sudden.
But with this decline that we've seen, much as it's anticipated, 19 months in the wait, do you think that it will be sustained in the long term, or this is just a stroke of the luck?
Well, we started to see this inflation on a month-on-month basis for a period of time before it was truncated sometime in June. And we, as I earlier mentioned, we were expecting that it will, sort of peak at some point this year and start to slow down, largely because of high base effect and also the fact that there are certain things, policies in place that are seeming to address inflation. Now, the outlook is that this will likely be sustained, given the policies like the high interest rate environment, the suspension on import duties on certain food items just to allow for food influx into the country. And the only risk I see to this particular outlook is the fact that, given the protests that started in August, you know how it affected northern countries, and they are the bulk of the food producing states that we have. Their own protest was more intense than we had it, down south rather. Yeah, so that could be a potential risk to our expected disinflation being sustained beyond July 2024.
What about the external, what do you call them now? External forces. Let's talk about the exchange rate. And also, what else could be external now? Yep. How does that affect the policies that the central bank has put in place? All these policies that we're looking at that seem to be helping now. If you add these external forces, external influence, how's that going to work out? And
also global food prices as well.
Thank you, that's another one.
That influences the price of bread, and all of that that we've seen now.
Wheat.
So let me start by saying that the CBN is into the policy of price control, whether it's inflation, whether it's exchange rate. They have done the inflation part by tightening monetary policy. And most people would argue that that tightening is not really something that addresses our type of inflation. And it's very true, because our type of inflation is beyond demand pull. Demand pull meaning that an economy that is driven by credit, you can easily hike interest rates and discourage spending, discourage borrowing as well. But that's not really what we are facing. Our issues are largely the supply side. Cost of production is high. And what are the things that feed into our cost of production? Our companies, as our large multinationals, need foreign exchange to, import some of these items from outside. If they see some level of stability in the exchange rate, they'll be able to plan their business and see how they can make money based on the current realities.
How's the exchange rate doing currently?
So for the month of July, what we noticed was that there was a 6.43% depreciation in the currency month on month, and we did see it close at 1.6, but right now we're around 1,500. So if we see more efforts from the CBN to stabilize it at a certain level, businesses will be able to plan, and now that will feed into their own profitability going forward, especially for the consumer goods companies. So we really need some form of stability, in essence, on the foreign exchange side before businesses can plan properly. Now, the supply side of inflation is largely all those infrastructural issues, adequate power supply, insecurity, very is still a problem right now that needs to be addressed. So all these things are not going to be addressed, of course, by hiking interest rates. So we still expect some form of synergy between the monetary policy authorities and fiscal authorities. The fiscal authorities they are the ones that, you know, introduced this suspension on import duties. So it's more or less like you're seeing that both parties are trying really hard to make sure that they rein in inflation eventually. Right. So we have to see these policies sustained for a period of time for us to really address our inflationary pressures.
Speaking of policies and the inflationary pressures, the core inflation was at 27.47% in July. And I mean, excluding the volatile agricultural products and energy that you're talking about, should policymakers respond to this? And besides all the other policies that they're making, what is one key thing that they're missing out in the policy decision-making process?
So really, the policies so far have been aimed at addressing food inflation, which is understandable given that it has a large chunk of it, but we should not ignore the impact as well of core inflation, because it was the only, if we're looking at the two broad categories of the entire inflation report, we're looking at food inflation, we're looking at core inflation. Core inflation did rise higher than the previous month. That's higher than what it recorded in the month of June, around 27% and above. So if issues, policies around ensuring that we have, you know, all these things around housing, rents, all these things are the ones that feed into core inflation. So if they can address things that are affecting those areas, we'll definitely see that being tamed as well.
Regarding the hike in interest rate or intention to raise interest rates again, what's the rationale behind that by the CBN?
As I mentioned earlier, that policy of hiking interest rate is largely to discourage borrowing, to discourage spending. And we don't, let me bring it down to practical terms. If you look at it, Nigerians will always argue that we don't even have the money to spend.
Why
are you increasing it? We need money to even spend, but we don't have it. So it is just to address the demand side of inflation, because we cannot just say our inflation is only supply as a result of cost pressures. It is beyond that. We had money supply, you know, that's money in the economy rise to around 70-something% at some point this year. And if you have money in circulation that much, you need to address that. Of course, some will argue that it's largely as a result of the devaluation of the currency. It sort of increased the amount when you translate it back to Naira, the amount in bank balance, in bank accounts and all that. Yes, that is true, but it also means that the banks also have more money to lend to the economy. So it would encourage a very productive lending approach than, you know, just giving out loans here, there, and it turns out to bite the economy at the end of the day. So the rationale is to address the demand side of things, of course.
Okay. When you look at the regional data, certain states like Sokoto, Jigawa, Enugu, they experience the highest food inflation on a year-on-year basis. And so one might ask what the factors might be to be driving these regional differences that we're seeing between these states and the other states. I would think Lagos would be on that list, but it's not. But it's not there. So what are the strategies that could be employed to address these very volatile food prices in this area? Jigawa.
So the states you just called are food-producing regions. Exactly. They are also prone to insecurity.
There we
Insecurity has to be addressed in those regions first before we can really see some level of improvement in terms of their own inflation rate.
So that's a very big factor that's actually overlooked. But recently, I think the government has already told that they'll be deploying soldiers to these regions. How soon can we see an effect? Because we know they're planting seasons, and if you miss one, you have about 6 months to recuperate. So how soon I might have answered that question.
I'm just looking at you, shaking my head.
I might have answered that. But as the expert.
I mean, like you rightly said, deploying soldiers is one thing. Them addressing the insecurities there is also another, because there's this fear on the part of the farmers to go to their farms to, you know, carry out their business. Most of the time, in fact, most of the entire farming system is largely subsistence driven. Is individuals that are just trying to make ends meet by going to their farms, you know, planting and harvesting and not coming to sell in the market. So it is, you need to really, I cannot speak for the government, but I expect that whatever they are doing in terms of addressing insecurity has to be done tactically and as soon as possible in order to, you know, encourage those farmers to go back to their farms.
Yeah. We talked about the Ekiti instance from earlier. Was that the right move at all, in any case?
In addressing food prices.
Do you think, even if it will affect the economy in the long run, for now, to address my hunger, is it a good move for Nigeria?
For now.
For now?
Yeah.
But there must be a
even this policy around this suspension of import duties also is not for the long term. It's just for now to just encourage to see how they can address food prices and encourage more food items.
I think that, okay, so as we run up, because we're pressed for time, I think that this thing of, you know, capping prices and putting caps on price or a ban on things, when we've seen this, you know, play out with the first then administration of President Buhari during the military era, and that wasn't good for those who were either importing or those who were producing food. It wasn't good for them, and we saw what the indices showed in the economy at that time, and that was then, and people would go to the market to try to buy food. They would beat people up because they refused to bring out their food stuff to sell. And so there's also that, there's a human angle to look at, and also the economy part of it to look at. I feel like if we address the root causes of this issue, there's a global food price hike. Let's be honest, there's a global food price hike. But I feel like if those causes be addressed first, there'll be no need for this knee-jerk reaction or this high-handedness where you have to force prices to be at a certain price so people can afford it.
I mean, that's why we are seeing some companies going into backward integration just to see how they can improve their own, source their own raw materials locally and not really be dependent on importing food. So that's is one thing would encourage, you know, companies locally to do. They should look inwards and see how they can replace some of these things that they are importing from outside and, you know, get it from inside. But as another thing is we need to address insecurity, because if you look at it, most of the things that we need, like most of the items that they need to feed into their own output at the end of the day are largely coming from food producing regions.
Nabil and Mohammed, thank you very much for such insightful contributions.
Thank you so much.
Now we understand better, and I'm sure that we'll keep in touch in case we have some of these questions to ask.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Yes.
Nabila Mohammed, she is a research analyst with Chapel Hill Denham. She joined us today for a very insightful and very enlightening discussion. So as we continue to monitor Nigeria's economic landscape, we will bring you more conversations, nuanced conversation right here. Well, coming up in the next hour, we're going to have a reality check. What is the cost of living in Lagos? Find out after the break. Stay with us. For our extra special for you this morning, we're zooming in on Lagos, Nigeria's bustling commercial hub, a city known for its towering skyscrapers, endless traffic, and vibrant hustle. But beneath the surface of this economic powerhouse lies a stark reality that many residents face daily, a reality where most Lagosians earn less than 100,000 naira a month, struggling to make ends meet as the cost of living continues to rise.
Now, these findings come from a recent report by Paid HR, a Nigerian startup specializing in HR management. The report, aptly titled State of the Employed, sheds light on the financial struggles of workers in Lagos, many of whom have no money left after covering basic needs like food, transport, and rent. The data paints a sobering picture of a city of contrasts, wealth on one side and financial strain on the other.
And that just reminds me of when you're driving on a 3rd mainland bridge. One side is just lush and the other is makoko. Well, To explore the findings of this report, we have with us in the studio Faith Omoni. He's a reporter with Tech Cabal, and he joins us to help us understand the broader implications of these findings for Lagosians and to also offer insights on what can be done to alleviate the economic pressures on the city's workforce. Faith, welcome to the program.
Welcome, Faith. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for coming on. I must say, to begin with, looking at the report, what were the key findings that struck at you when you looked at it?
I was particularly surprised by the fact that people have no income left after spending on just necessities like food.
Faith, I know, yeah. I live check to check.
Don't we all?
Yes, I say, don't we all?
People don't save at all.
I think saving is a myth. I think it's a myth. Yeah.
Right now, people don't save, and people that manage to save, they save for rent.
Mm-hmm.
And people that maybe earn larger amounts, they save for japa.
So how is this going to affect the financial systems in Lagos generally, with people earning just 100,000 naira and rents, food, japa in the mix? What is the long-term effect on a city like Lagos? That's a commercial hub, by the way.
Right. Lagos is known as the commercial hub and all of that. I feel like the governments will not make enough taxes, right? Because the companies themselves, they are struggling to get by. So you cannot tell them to maybe increase the salary of staff. Productivity is really low. People burn diesel every day to just keep following the businesses. So, and if people cannot, part of the report states that people don't have spending for recreation. You don't have stuff for discretionary spending, right? Yes. If you cannot spend in all of these places, those places cannot also remit taxes to the government.
I noticed something, Judith. Have you noticed that very many fast food joints are closing down?
Yeah.
In my area of town, Omuodofin, you have many of them closing shop.
I've told you many times to stop saying where you're from on television.
My apologies. You'd find out that these little, what do you call them, fast food joints are closing down because people don't patronize them anymore. Yeah. When was the last time you went to an ice cream, you know the one, an ice cream store?
And ordered an ice cream?
And ordered an ice cream. The cost is so high. So what's this going to do to businesses of the sort? How is this affecting businesses of the sort?
Like you rightly said, many businesses are closing down. I cover tech for Tech Cabal, right? And a lot of startups are just shutting down. It does not make business sense to continue. People can, consumer spending is strained because of the inflation, what you get for a certain amount of price before, you can no longer get it again, right? So prices are high, and I don't know, businesses will just continue to shut down, or they will find a way to just go around it.
So these businesses shut down, Lagos also loses as well.
Well,
in the long term.
Yeah.
In the long term. You mentioned a couple of things. Number one was the rising cost of living. Number two was food inflation. Number three was also transportation as well, because we've seen how transportation, even with the Kurukwe, the locally named Kurukwe, or even the ride-hailing services, it's hiked significantly over the last 1 year. So how are Lagosians coping with these rising costs, and what long-term effects might this have on their financial stability? Not even the state now, them as person.
So part of the report says that 50% of the people have more than one income, right?
Wow.
People are juggling.
How many side income?
I can't let HR know.
So people are juggling multiple gigs with their full-time job, and even that is not enough. People still end up spending more than they earn, right? So for somebody that takes Uber before, you are relegated to taking public transport.
Or not even going out at all.
Yeah.
So people have cut the time spent going out. I thought I was going to be late for this event because there were long queues along the filling station.
Yes.
Fully selling for 800 to 1,000 naira per litre.
Yeah.
So that would incentivize you to just cut your spending, just walk around it, maybe stay at home, don't go out too much. And in the long run, we end up becoming poorer.
And as workers are turning to second income, streams to supply or supplement their earnings, what does this trend tell us about the current state of employment in Lagos State?
Right. So the report also stated that there's a 77% employment to population ratio. That is, 77% of people that can be employed in Lagos are actually employed. So that's like a good employment rate as compared with maybe other states, right? I'm sorry, can we give me your question?
Yeah, so I was asking, what does this trend tell us about the current state of employment in Lagos State, and how sustainable is this for the average worker having to juggle 3-4 jobs at the same time?
I don't think it is really sustainable, right? Because it affects productivity, and not in a country like Nigeria where you are trying to complete a task and the light goes off, you're trying to get fuel to run it. So your productivity is damaged. And when productivity is damaged, companies tend to lose money because the average time it will take you to complete a task is now elongated, so you need more time. And now juggling multiple jobs. People are doing it because of the income, right?
Right.
But then it's directly affecting productivity, which would then affect a company's income.
Yeah.
So what does this do for the individuals? Now, if I can't earn a comfortable amounts to actually make a living, and I have to turn to other jobs, I have to live far from home, definitely perhaps maybe your health's going to be impacted.
Yeah.
Apart from that, there are other things that could also be affected. For instance, people who can't make a living would turn to what other avenue of making money? How's that going to affect crime, infrastructure, health?
So the thing about this is that there are ravaging effects on every sector. So the report states that people are less productive, that's one, and it states that the effect of all of this inflation is affecting their mental health. So I'm at my job, I'm thinking, oh, how do I eat this afternoon? How do I send my kids to school? How do I pay rent? So it's directly affecting what they give out at work, and that might probably lead to more crime rates because not many people can bear.
I'll take sharp corners. Okay, Oga, if you give me extra, I'll make this job go faster for you.
Do you get
kind of thing?
That kind of thing, and that's we don't really want that problems on our hands.
And I also noticed the people now live further away from their homes just so they can afford rent in these places. For instance, working on the island and living in Okoko. And if you wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, you see people already on the streets. That affects, I mean, that's going to affect productivity because I will be sleepy when I get to work and I'm not going to put out my 100.
And when you don't put your 100, your company loses money.
Exactly.
And I would say this for the viewers watching at home, if you have a research analytical company, you should look into getting, looking at the lifespan of an average Nigerian. Maybe it's going to be a long, protracted time, but I'm very intrigued to see people who come from Badagry or Okowa.
You really want to see that data?
You know, to see what it looks like. Because I know somebody in my personal life who was living in one end of the town, of the city, and working in another end of the city. And when he retired, it didn't last up to a year. He died. And it was just all of that pressure that finally when he's rested, his body now decides to disintegrate. You know, he couldn't carry him all through retirement. And so, besides, looking at the report, one of the things it stated was that that saving was a luxury for many, and with most workers lacking access to employer-based loans or credit facility. You are a tech reporter.
Yeah.
That means there's an opportunity for creditors there. Can you speak to that? And also, speaking about savings, they also said that there's a difference in saving habits in the report between men and women.
Men and women, especially single men and single women. So it stated that single women save more than single men. I guess we all know why.
We all do. You and I know why. Single women under stress. I mean, hey.
And married men save more than married women.
How is that?
Because they have to take care of the children.
Right. You're not saving, you're paying for fees and all of that.
Yeah, but they're saving. Because
you save it first before.
You save it for.
Well,
you're not saving.
I have very interesting luxuries.
No, answer because we're almost pressed for time.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it says 70% of people that work, they don't have like access to credit, right? I feel like that presents an opportunity for digital lenders, right? There are digital lenders all around. And there's a particular opportunity for people that are employed because you know that they have the ability to pay back. They will not run away with your money. You can maybe do direct debit at source and all of those things. So there's an opportunity for that. And the report also says that, most people don't save, right? That's like becoming a luxury. If you save, you're saving for rent or you're saving for japa. Wig was like the last last rung of the saving. Props to the women.
Faith, We can't go any further on this segment, but it's a very interesting one, a very personal one, because it actually touches you, touches I, touches you yourself. So it's very interesting to have you on here. Thank you very much for your insight on this.
We appreciate you for coming on and just giving us more insight in this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
If you live in Lagos, yes, we know the cost is very high, but try and keep your sanity together, because that's the one thing. Your health, generally, is the one thing that you have that you can always just, maintain. Do stay tuned. It's the end of our first hour. We have the news coming up, and then we have more stories and reports come our second hour here for Breakfast Extra. Stay tuned.
And you're welcome to Breakfast Extra. Let's begin by telling you that former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has called on the government to declare war against insecurity following incessant reports of kidnapping sweeping across the country. In a statement on X on Saturday, Obi called for bold action, collective resolve, and a united front against insecurity. His outcry comes less than 24 hours after the kidnapping of the Anambra State Commissioner for Youth Development, Patrick Agamba, and his wife, who were kidnapped at the Kogi Axis on their way to Abuja for the wedding of Governor Chukwuma Soludo's daughter. The commissioner's kidnapping incident comes hours after police authorities said that about 20 medical students had been kidnapped in Benue State while leading or heading to Enugu State. A former governor of Ogun State, Senator Ibikunle Amosun, has said that he will not allow a Chinese company, Zhongshan Fangchang Industrial Investment Co. Limited, to scam Nigeria. A contract dispute between the Ogun State government and the Chinese company has led to the seizure of 3 Nigerian presidential jets. The dispute reportedly stemmed from a 2007 agreement for the development of the Ogun Free Trade Zone, which later fell apart, leading to the arbitration and ultimately the seizure of the jets. Despite an independent arbitrary trial awaiting awarding the company approximately $74.5 million, the Ogun State government has disputed the decision and has not yet honored the award. Meanwhile, the lawmakers representing Ogun East Senatorial District, Benga Daniel, has urged President Bola Tinubu to explore diplomatic channels to resolve the issues surrounding the Ogun Free Trade Zone FTZ deal. And on to Abuja, where a section of the popular Kura Modern Market located opposite the Prince and Princess Market in the Kura district of Abuja was on Friday night gutted by fire. The fire, which reportedly started at about 11 p.m. on Friday, razed about 40 shops with items such as foodstuff, appliances, and food items lost in the inferno. Confirming the incident, the acting director of the FCT Fire Service, Amiola Adebayo, on Saturday stated that the fire was caused by an electrical spark on a power changeover installed in one of the shops, further aggravated by a generator kept inside the shop where the fire started. Move away from that now. Residents of the Bandara community in the Kurudu area of the capital, that's the Federal Capital Territory, have called on relevant authorities to come to their aid over what they described as an attempt by an estate developer to forcefully evict them from their community. The residents who took to the streets after a recent demolition of some houses in the community say that despite a court order restraining the action of the developer, the properties of many families were still pulled down and making them homeless. Our correspondent Edom Joseph reports.
Feeling distressed over the recent demolition of several houses on August the 15th, the residents of the Bandara community converged on the divisional headquarters of the Nigerian police in the Kurudu area of the Federal Capital Territory. Carrying placards, tree branches, and singing songs of solidarity, they then walked into the street where they alleged that an estate developer, under the supervision of the Nigerian police, the Nigerian Civil Defense Corps, and personnel from the Correctional Service jointly conducted the demolition.
All these developers, they hide under the the banner of police. They are using police, and we know the quiet order this business is a one-man business. They are terrorizing us every day within 6-month interval, within a year interval.
This land belongs to Ogbandala community. The place that they give police is Orozo Kerishi Road, and we have consent judgment that show us a boundary.
12,000 families are involved in this place, and we are telling the government, the Nigerian citizens of Nigeria, to hear us. The location of this community is in Kurudu, behind Lavok, behind the police estate. They have always used police name to claim this place.
They cried out about the incessant intimidation by the estate developer since 2010, with no warrant of demolition, despite a court order mandating them to suspend their actions. They called on relevant authorities to intervene.
There is hunger in the land, and you are coming to add this to us? Is it proper? Is it proper? Mr. President Jagaban, the Tinubu, the president of this nation, we are calling your attention to this matter.
They have been asking us to be bringing money. Where are we going to get 5 million? I don't have 1 million accounts. The one that we have, they say to bring it by force, by force. I don't have the one that I'm going to bring. I bet Wike, come and assist us.
Nigerians, we are calling Kinjibe Ireti, our FCT senator. We are calling the chairman of AMAC. We are calling the former senator FCT, our father, Philip Aduda. We need all of you. We don't want to take laws into our hands.
They also promised to resist any further attempts to evict them if no action is taken.
We want DK to be cautioned. We want Dudon to be cautioned. We want Andy to be cautioned. We don't want to take laws into our hands.
We are not going to take it any longer. The next time they come here and bring any roof down, we are going to go to the barrack for reproach. We are going to go to the estate for reproach. We are not pretending about that. So let this serve as a warning to whoever thinks he has money and have a right in his pocket.
According to the residents, this is the third time in about 14 years that they have faced demolition of their property with the intent to evict them from their community. They said the first was in 2011 and then 2016, and now the recent demolition which took place on August the 15th. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idonko Joseph.
Economic prosperity has been described as one of the major targets of every society and state for development to thrive. Now, these were the words of the governor of Plateau State, Caleb Ofuang, while addressing the challenges faced by petty traders maintaining illegally constructed stores within the Jos Bukuru metropolis. News Central's Chizoba Anyonwe tells us more.
They always pack our things and went away with it. And when we got there, they will charge us to court. They will say, look, in fact, one of my woman fellow that is selling it, they lock that woman up, they bed that woman with 10,000 naira. Those common cheating and mineral, they collected 30,000 naira. For what?
That set the tone for this report. In September 2023, the government of Plateau State, under Executive Order 003, came on board. The objective, among others, is to scrap illegally constructed stores, impound vehicles parked in wrong places, and beautify the city center. Enforcement on this order began a few months ago, with offenders asked to pay various amounts of fine to retrieve their seized items. Traders and motorists have never been comfortable with this. However, Governor Mutfwang has recently reversed the order for traders, noting the economic hardship they experience.
We have instructed that all the demolitions be halted and that we are looking for spaces to develop community markets. But you agree with us that there is no society that thrives with lawlessness. That we must therefore balance between law and order, and also ensuring that there is an economic prosperity for our people.
News Central felt the pulse of these traders based on the governor's order, but the reverse was the case.
I personally, I collected chichi, 80,000 naira. These people seal it. And when I went there, they said they took it to orphanage home. For what? For what when I have my children, I have my grandchildren? Is it a cause? Is it a crime for us to look for daily bread?
Yesterday for Jude site, they pack about 3 cars. Them pack people slow. They pack 3 cars. Today, them pack 2 cars for this down this entire site. Even we said they didn't allow us to put anything. We don't have anything to eat now to give our children. We don't have anything. See our children for house are just suffering, crying, no food to give them.
I just feel like crying. We are suffering. Things are very bad. We are going through a lot. This is not what we bargained for. We were happy, we were dancing that the right governor we wanted has come. But everything just turned up to become as in so painful.
How the governor's order will see the light of the day remains their worry.
I left my house, nothing to give my children. They are crying, I just go away. I go borrow the load from market now to come and sell it. Then run to come and pick it. Now so I'm running with it since in the morning reach this time. I don't know how to do. Please, the governor should pity us and help us. If not, we don't know what we will do.
How are we going to cope? We have children to feed, we have school fees to pay. We are just struggling. Things are not easy with us. We are not happy. We are telling the governor we are not happy. He should do something about it.
He's always trying. Even ourselves, we are praising the governor that let him try more to help us to also be established in our life.
He should consider we that are operating low level. We have no money for shop, that is number 1. Secondly, if there is a place he can just give us freely on his own, he should send the authority to come and do that for us.
As these traders continue to wallow in their plight, they have also continued to ask the government of the day to listen to their cries, even as they look for better ways of getting their means of livelihood. From the Terminus Main Market in Jos, Chizoba Anyongwe, reporting for News Central.
Southern African leaders have wrapped up their summit in Harare, Zimbabwe, with a focus on the growing threat of Mpox. The 44th Southern Africa Development Community Summit saw leaders discussing the continent's challenges, including the spread of Mpox to over a dozen African countries. SADC Executive Secretary Elias Magosi announced that an emergency meeting of health ministers will be held to coordinate a response to the outbreak. The meeting aims to facilitate a unified approach to combat the spread of Mpox in the region.
We have amicably come to a conclusion where we are all agreed on the issues and challenges facing our region. Meanwhile, we pay special tribute to the sacrifice and contribution of the SADC forces in the now.
And that's all of the breakfast headlines at this hour. I am Judith Atibi. Coming up after the break, it's going to be a Breakfast Extra, and this time more on our big story. Does Nigeria need a constitutional reform at this time? Should it be priority? We'll answer these questions and more after the break. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Now, let's delve into a significant development in Nigeria's political landscape. Earlier this week, a group known as the Patriots, led by former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyaoku, met with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, this they did at the State House. The group has called on the president to initiate a process for drafting a new constitution, arguing that the current one is no longer fit to guide the nation toward prosperity.
And so joining us to unpack the implications of this meeting and also the broader conversation around constitutional reform is Professor Anthony Hiller. He's the Director General of the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, and he joins us live in the studio. Professor, good morning to you, and thank you so much for coming.
Welcome back, sir.
Good to be here. Good morning.
As always. I mean, the call for a new constitution is a bold one, especially from the former Secretary General, and that's Chief Emeka Anyaoku. And his group argued that the current constitution has not addressed Nigeria's challenges. It cannot take the country to the promised land, in quotation mark. What do you make of this assertion, and do you believe that we need a new constitution? Is this indeed the solution to Nigeria's myriad of problems?
I mean, definitely I agree. I was with him when he said it would be odd for me to have any reservation. But, you know, I agree because proof of my agreement is that I was there. The logic of my agreement is that reason and conscience actually proves that we do need a constitution. You know, let us start from a very simple thing. The first 3 words in the Nigerian constitution says, we the people. Well, that's a lie. You know, we the people never start to say, we want this 1999 constitution. This constitution is a fruit of a military decree that was turned into constitution for us. And that is wrong. You know, that is on principle. But really in practice, given where we are, whether you look at it from 1914 or 1960, or indeed from 1999 today, given the state of our nation and the kind of things we're going through, I'm very convinced that if you ask Nigerians to sit down today and write their constitution, it will be very different from what you have in the 1999 constitution. It will be different because the concerns Nigerians of today will be worried about will be guarantees for diversity. It will be guarantees against oppression of the police. It will be guarantee against invasion of the state. It will be assurances that the power and the influence of government, the executive and all form of government will be curtailed. I suspect they will say something about the salaries of lawmakers in the new constitution. I suppose they'll peg it to something along that line. My thinking is that if we start together to say, let's do a constitution, we're going to do something different. So what we have is a constitution that is not fully legitimate, very flawed, and certainly not functional. As a result, you know, if you have something that does not work, what do? You redo it.
You redo it. Yeah. You said the first 3 words, we the people. So obviously, we're not a pluralistic society.
Yes.
And Chief Anyoko actually noted that when he gave examples of Canada and I think India, them embracing a pluralistic society and how it worked well for them. And on the other extreme was Yugoslavia and Czechoslovakia and how they disintegrated. So how do you compare that statement to what we have currently now in Nigeria? Well, then again, you were there, and I did see you in the picture with the president, by the way. But if you give some credit to that,
well, I think it makes sense. I mean, you know, I keep saying I was there because I believe in it. I was there because I understand it. You know, I was there in knowledge and conscience. So I think I'm in a good place to explain it very well.
Yeah.
If you look at it, so what we've done in Nigeria, you know, from 1960 onwards, is that, well, actually more from 1966, but rather than embrace our diversity, we have tried to force ourselves to what we're not. You see, we've tried to do a country to say, we're Nigerians. What does it mean? The error that people make is that we don't have to be. If you look at profiles of politicians, they use a very ugly word. They say it's detribalized. Well, that's one of the worst words in English language, detribalized. You don't have to be detribalized. We can live in a country knowing that Nigeria is not a state nation, but the union of nations. And in the union of nations, every part of the country can be guaranteed a safe, prosperous, and happy life within the framework of the law. I argue that the Nigeria of the future should be a country where the center is not very strong and the sub-nations, regions, the state are stronger because that's where the real action is.
So we don't giving power to the people.
To the people, you know, you decentralize. So you don't have people rushing to the center.
So what would that new reformed constitution look like? Exactly what would it be?
Well, now, this is because the patriots are asking for input of the people, you cannot say what it will be. But, you know, those who know me, I'm very frank about my things. I like to say what I would like to see. I would like a short constitution. A constitution that is so small, you can put it in your pocket, is so straightforward and concise, most Nigerians can know most part of it.
Succinct. Very
succinct. So that, you know, if something happens to you, say, no, you're violating Article 10. I want a constitution that is not more than 20 rules. And it's very doable because, you know, those are the basics. What is a constitution? Foundation of the country, form of government, guarantees of right. As you can see, I teach constitution a lot. It doesn't take a lot to do it and get it very clear. So that's
well, don't you think it would lack nuances in terms of interpretation and capturing situations that are different from what you would see in, like you said,
in a long constitution?
Yeah.
Well, 2 things. Number 1 is this, and I want viewers to take note of this. Anytime you find an agreement that is very long, terms and conditions, there's something bad in it that's going to happen to you. Good agreements are short and straight to the point. That's on one side, generally speaking. Specifically speaking, this is 2024. We've had 100 years of experiences of constitutions around the world. If anybody has the duty, the privilege of helping to write a constitution today, the key word is to be precise. The key word is to be succinct in it. And you get straight to the point, because you can borrow examples. You've seen what will happen if you use all or all. You can see what will happen if you use and if. So, you know, it's we're not, and this is the thing,
right.
And this is why I get angry with some people. When they say Nigeria is a young democracy, we don't have to start from the beginning. We can start from the end of where others have been, you know, walk on the shoulders of giants, as it were. That's the way we ought to be thinking if we want to move things forward.
The Patriots are proposing that, President Tinubu send an executive bill to the National Assembly to convene a national constituency assembly with members elected on a non-party basis. They suggest that this assembly should draft a new constitution within 9 months. How visible do you think this timeline is, and what challenges might arise, during such a process?
I think 9 months is more than enough. If you get serious people inside, you can do a constitution in 3-6 months. It's just the passing in that goes through, because let's face it, they're not starting from zero. There's the 2014 Confab report. There is the 1963 Constitution.
You already have these.
We have a lot of things. All they need to do is get together and do a summary and take the nuances to meet the Nigeria of today and tomorrow. So you look at the past to build it tomorrow. The problems you might have are that there are some people who, for some strange reasons, individuals or groups, or cabal is the trending word, that do not want things to change in this country. For some reason, they want to hold it down. Some of them genuinely because they're shallow, because their understanding of the world is limited to a general understanding of social constructs, to know that if it's not a mountain, if it's man-made, you can twinkle it and sit down and let it fit you. It is not the law that Moses brought from the mountain.
What about the challenges as well in doing this proposal to the President Tinubu?
Well, I think you've seen the way the country works. I mean, the president, personally, the proposal, the suggestion of the Patriots is to give a pathway, to say, here's one way you can do it, a very quick way. I mean, it's not difficult, and he can do it.
So that pathway is given. Has the group, the Patriots, have they considered the architecture of this reform? Who's going to be representing the different people across Nigeria? One, the expenditure that's going to go into putting together this new
say town hall meeting where people are coming.
The timeline, I think you already touched on the timeline.
We touched on the timeline.
But the architecture, the structure, the function of the different units that come together to make this reform, what's that going to be like?
Well, I think, so what is the principle behind it? The idea is that if you make it a partisan choice, people will bring in their ideology and their interest into it. But if you make it a general national thing that is not partisan, you look for people who are qualified to talk about constitutions that represent the various constituencies in Nigeria. What are our constituencies? It is ethnic, it is religious, and professional. We can, you can do it in broad terms. If we're very serious and want to simplify things, it is easy to, to break it into 3 or 4 different groups. And you look at them across the local governments of Nigeria, you look at it at, various parts of Nigeria. That's not a very difficult thing to do. Then you say what is going to be the expenses. Number one is that if they're good men and women of goodwill, the first rule should be, let's not make Nigeria bankrupt. Let's spend as little as possible. Let's use Zoom where it's possible. We don't have to travel every day. They don't have to buy them new cars. If you really cannot have a car, maybe you shouldn't be there at all. So let's not do those kind of things. Let's get the existing finance to finance it. But above all, we have to see this not as a waste, but an investment. So the whole point is, you want to invest in something that is worth it, but you want to do it in a prudent way, knowing what it will generate tomorrow. That's the way to look at it.
Professor, I must ask, in the past there have been constitutional reforms, and at the end it has not met the expectations of various Nigerians and many Nigerians. How then can we avoid pitfalls in this process? Should the president heed to these proposals by the Patriots, you know?
Well, there are two things to be said about that. Number one is that it is not that it has not met people's expectations. It is that they've not implemented it. So we have to be very careful about that. Now, if people get together and produce a document, good or bad, I happen to believe that the 2014 Confab report is a very good report. It's one of the best things that any committee has produced in Nigeria. So if they, you know, if people get together and produce a document or put together some plan, and some people refuse to implement it or cannot implement it, you don't blame the people that put it together. You know, at some age in life, you go past blame. Let's just say they were not able to do it. But moving forward, we need to go and look at why did they not implement it? Who are the people that are blocking reforms in Nigeria? Because as I said, you know, some people are, you know, out of limited knowledge saying this thing is not necessary. But I suspect some people out of mischief are looking for what is wrong with the process, the people, and the idea. We have to be very careful. And, you know, I am somebody who's not going to shy away. And I want to say this here today. I want Nigerians to know that I personally am ready to take on anybody on this matter. Let us bring reason and knowledge together. Let us put logic to say, do we need it? How do we get it? What is wrong with it? I heard some people say, we don't need that. The problem is not the Constitution, it's the people. I asked them, if we change the Constitution, will it cause any harm? If you say we don't need it, but will it cause harm? If it's not going to cause harm, let's do it. If the only thing it can do is to improve our law, then let's do it. Those who say the problem is not the Constitution, it's the people, their view is limited, whoever they are. Because let me say something to you. The countries that Nigerians imitate, emulate, and ape, actually sometimes, or look up to, the reason why they work is because they have systems that work. It's not that the people are inherently good. There's nothing about the water they drink or their haircut or anything like that. It's just that they have systems that would not allow them to do bad things. Because if they do bad things, the system is in place. If the United States did not have the kind of system they have, Donald Trump would not leave the White House when he lost. I want Nigerians to keep remembering that. It is a man is a product of system. A few people make history. Most people are made by history.
So every Nigerian must have political will to be able to build a system, you know, the system that we need to ensure rule of law.
So in line with that, I was going to ask, you stated your responsibility.
Yes.
What responsibility do we owe? Judith, the media, social society,
civil
societies, every Nigerian out there.
Thank you very much for that. That's very much for that question. What we owe ourselves is knowledge and attention. The price of democracy is internal vigilance. We need, no matter what system we have, if we're not informed, if we're not active, somebody's going to abuse that system. So as we walk towards a new system, let us visualize the opportunity of a generational chance to design our future. Whether we're individuals, citizens, consumers, media people, professionals, students, traders, lovers, whatever we are, let us imagine we have this chance to reshape our future. And let us think of what matters to us and participate, put our input, so that we become aware of it and we can shape it together. And once we shape it together, we're then going to be clear what our rights and our responsibilities are. And we'll hold on to somebody so that the day after we have a new constitution in Nigeria, it's going to be a reset moment. And the day after that, if somebody does something that is violating the constitution, you say, no, that's not what we agreed yesterday. It's a new lease of life. And I think it's worth exploring.
I have to ask, because we're pressed for time, the group emphasized the importance of subjecting the new draft constitution to a national referendum. And that's something that the current Nigerian law does not provide for.
Yes.
So how crucial is this step in ensuring that the new constitution truly reflects the will of the people? And is it legal?
It is very legal, and, you know, history supports it, the law supports it.
So what legal, would there be any legal or...
Well, you just need a law to do it. Yeah. Can you see how long it took to do the national anthem?
Yeah.
So once we have that, we know everything is doable.
Yes.
Once we have that. So yes, the reason why they say that is because continuously we want it to be a democratic constitution. And the most democratic thing is a referendum.
Well, I hope that the Patriots have a forum where regular people can come so they can understand.
A town hall meeting, you know.
Boom, a blue one.
I will guarantee that.
Fantastic. Make sure you mention that was my input.
For that.
All right, Professor Killer, thank you very much for joining us once again. Always a pleasure to have you here. Such insightful comments. And to everybody out there, please do stay tuned because we have more coming inside this hour as we attend to another big story. Stay tuned.
And welcome to the big report as we turn our attention to a matter of critical importance to Nigeria's economy, and that's crude oil theft. In a recent development, Nigeria's House of Representatives Special Investigating Committee has placed the blame squarely on the Niger Delta Development Commission, also known as NDDC, for its mismanagement of resources, which they say is exacerbating the ongoing crude oil theft crisis. So the committee has called for immediate reforms within the NDDC to address this growing concern.
Now, our correspondent Idong Joseph has been following this story closely. In his report, he provides a comprehensive look at the committee's findings and the implications of the NDDC and the nation's economy. Let's take a look at that report.
Crude oil theft over the years has continued to pose a significant challenge to Nigeria's economy, as the nation's revenue aspirations largely depend on the sales of crude. According to the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, between 2017 and 2020, over 4.3 trillion naira worth of crude was stolen, a situation that is unsustainable.
An economy like our own, which is largely till today depending on oil as a major substrate, major base for our economic functions and even for financing public services and infrastructure, cannot continue with this kind of serious challenge in the oil and gas sector.
While engaging critical stakeholders to understand the extent of the acts and provide lasting solutions, some lawmakers say the lack of access to petroleum products for riverine communities and the mismanagement of the Niger Delta Development Commission can be blamed for the problem.
The fallacies and shortfalls of the NDDC's statutory performance as an organization is contributing significantly to the problem of oil theft. If you guys can do the right thing, you take these boys off the street.
How do they refrigerate their fishes, if they do not have PMS? So, Chairman, this is one of the root causes. Absence of PMS and AGO in the NNPCL floating station has enabled illegal bunkering.
The NDDC claims that its programs and projects within the Niger Delta region over time has helped efforts to mitigate oil theft.
By reason of that single road, being able to provide security, to intervene in any oil theft in that axis.
I know the time frame that took NDDC to build that road we are talking about. 16 years, my brother. 16 years. Building 28-kilometer road. Whether it was you are making or not, is that the right thing to do?
Other agencies like Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency present at the hearing revealed that it has not been carried along in crude oil transactions in the country. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Now that was our correspondent Idong Joseph with the latest on the House of Representatives investigation into the NCDC's role in Nigeria's crude oil theft crisis. And now Idong joins us live for more on this development story. Idong Joseph, a very good morning to you and thank you for that detailed report that you put out for us. Now, the House of Committee has clearly laid out their concerns regarding the NCDC's handling of resources. So can you give us a sense of the specific criticism, the committee chair has directed at the NDDC and what actions they are urging the commission to take on?
Okay, good morning and thank you for having me. The criticism by the House of Representatives Committee, Special Committee on Crude Oil Theft and Loss of Crude Oil Revenue was directed specifically to the leadership and management of the Niger Delta Development Commission, accusing them that they've not been meeting up to the expectations of which the NDDC was created and what that expectation for them to ensure that the commission take youths who are unemployed from the Niger Delta states off the streets, and also as well as try to alleviate poverty, developments in the Niger Delta region, ensure that citizens in the states, Niger Delta states, feel the impact of developments and governments in their area. They feel that this commission, through their leadership, have not been able to meet up with the expectations. And despite the huge allocation they get every year, and the House feel if the NDDC is not being able to do these things, and they should also be ready to take a large portion of the blame for crude oil theft and oil bunkering in the Niger Delta region. Because these youths who are unemployed, majorly those of them who are engaged in crude oil theft and oil bunkering activities, are those who are not employed. And so if they are jobless, then they will have nothing to think about than rather think of engaging in criminal activities like the crude oil bunkering, because they feel those crude oil is being extracted at their backyard. And so if they have crude oil at their backyard and they have nothing to do, then they should engage in such criminal activities. And so that's why the House have taken it that if the NDDC has not been able to meet up to its expectations, then the issue of crude oil bunkering should be largely blamed on the management, because they have not been able to meet up to the expectations while that commission was created. And now what they want, what they urge the management now to do, because from the way they sound, they feel confident with the new management, and what they urge them to do is that go back home. Try to put your house in order. Ensure that citizens in this region feel the impact of this commission. Feel the impacts of this commission, and not just feel the impacts. Those who are unemployed, who are on the streets, try to ensure that jobs are created for them. Because if they have jobs doing, then they will not be thinking of engaging in oil bunkering and other illegal activities. And so, that's why the committee believe that if the NDDC will receive large portion of oil revenue yearly and not being able to meet up to the expectations, then they should take a large chunk of the blame for crude oil theft and oil bunkering.
So, Joseph, now the committee is asking the NDDC to go put its house in order. And, well, they're also telling that it might not just be all crude oil theft. But what have you found out from your investigation, your personal findings now? What's the state of things? Okay, if you look at it, not just mine, one other lawmaker raised an observation, which he said the floating filling stations, which were at the riverine communities in the Niger Delta states, has been a source of power for those residing in that area. But for over 10 years now, those floating filling stations owned by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited has not been able to supply petroleum products to this community. And so if they have no products to power their house and what have you, then they will have no option than extract those crude, which is illegal, and then try to create power for themselves. And aside from that, we've also seen over time that the management truly have reneged in their responsibilities in ensuring that citizens in that region get feel the impact of governments.
And I must ask about this claims of, or rather this allegations of mismanagement of funds, and saying that their handling of resources directly has contributed to this crisis. But we know that bunkering or crude theft in that region is not new. It's been something that has been recurring the entire history of the discovery of crude oil in that area. Should NDDC bear the bulk sum of this blame?
Okay, if you look at it, if you look at what's happening over the past few years now, you see that our exports of crude has reduced. meaning that because of the lack of jobs for those in the region, so it's believed that many people now are engaged in crude oil bunkering. And so there's a commission created to ensure youths in this region are being employed, poverty is being taken care of, and other aspects of life are being taken care of by this commission. If this commission is not doing that, okay, just let's take for instance, this their recent budget is about 1 trillion naira. And if you have such a budget and citizens in that region are not feeling the impact, then yes, you should be blamed for it. And not just that, you should be blamed for it. You should try and ensure that your programs are not one that take long before citizens in that region feel the impacts of it.
Well, alrighty then. So finally, Joseph, let's ask what the reaction from the NDDC has been so far since the start of this situation. Are they admitting to some of the implicative statements that have been made in their direction?
Okay, the only reaction we saw was the one at the House of Representatives, where immediately the representatives of the NDDC tried to dismiss the allegation by the chair of the special committee that the mismanagement of the NDDC contributes to this. And he made mention of several projects which the NDDC have executed, and those projects they believe have helped in addressing the issue of oil bunkering. Though we should understand that the NDDC was not created to tackle oil bunkering, but they believe that those projects which they put in place have helped. And we also saw another turn where the chairman of the committee had to counter them, letting them know that this project you're talking about took quite a number of years before it was executed. So if you're boasting of such projects for taking longer time, then you're not doing what you're supposed to do, because your project should be one that have an immediate impact on citizens.
Well, then.
I mean, Joseph, I want to say thank you. And just to round this up, you've heard from both the side of the NDDC and also the reps. What then will be the solution moving forward? Is it more synergy where they have to go back to the reps to continue to find a lasting solution to this problem of crude oil, or should they just go home and create more policies and more, strategies?
Okay, I believe there are enough policies already on ground which will help address the issue. First, it will need more synergy with not just the House of Reps, but also back to the state, with the state House of Assembly, and also engagement with the community to discuss with them and know what their problems are, and not just sitting right in their office and making policies and thinking, okay, this is what I feel this community should need, and just go implement such things for them. You should also engage with the community and know what their problem is and why they've been engaged in such activities. And then that way it will help address the issue, because over the years we've seen how our revenue exports, our revenue for crude oil has dwindling, and it is not helping the nation at all.
Right. Well, we want to say thank you so much for your report, and just very insightful report that you did over the week there. Well, one thing is clear: crude oil theft is hampering on our energy sector, and there's a lot that's been left on the table, and it needs to be addressed urgently. Hopefully, with the reps stepping in with NDDC, we might just see the change that we need. But again, Idong Joseph, many thanks.
Idong, thank you very much.
Idong Joseph is our correspondent who joined us live from Abuja.
Let's do a break, and when we come back, it's going to be time for sports. We have Favor standing by, and he'll be telling us what the latest is inside of the world of sports, since Judith doesn't know what to do with herself since after the Olympics. Yeah, you said it yourself, didn't you?
I'm waiting for Paralympics to happen. But also, it's EPL night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll
let Favor tell us all about it when we get back.
Stay with us. Before we bring you sports, let's patch you over to South Africa, where we have our correspondent, Bongani Ziziba, on standby. South Africa crime, which is about crime, the high rate of crime in South Africa as churches march against crime in Johannesburg. And Ziziba is live there now, just covering the event. Ziziba, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Judith, and good morning to our viewers.
All right. I can see behind you flags are being flown. People are congregated there. What's the update? What's going on where you're at?
Absolutely, Judith. We are in the streets of Yeoville, the heart of Johannesburg. As you can see behind me, the crime rate in South Africa has been a problem. And the churches have also taken upon themselves to speak to the neighborhood, to speak to some foreigners and also locals about the crime rate in South Africa. We know that the crime rate has also been going on in some churches where we have seen the robbers coming in some churches and also collecting cell phones and any valuable things in churches. So some churches have come out, and today we have the Adventist Seventh-day Adventist Church rather, who are out in the streets of Hillbrow, Yeoville, talking to citizens, talking to foreign nationals. We know that in South Africa, it has been said that foreign nationals, most of them are committing crimes. So they are out here today just to speak to everyone, to say, can we stop crime so that this thing of foreigners being labeled as criminals in South Africa should stop. But let me just bring in one of the organizers who can tell us in depth why they've decided to embark on this march today. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Why have you embarked on this protest, or rather march today?
Indeed, we have embarked on this march today, seeing that the people around us, most of our youth have fallen out through drugs and daga, and they're taking now. Thieving is a daily thing which is happening nowadays here in our place, Bellevue East.
And do you think because of this it will change the narrative, especially that foreigners are the ones that are committing crimes in South Africa?
Indeed, it will change the narrative, seeing that a lot of people, we have to make people aware of drugs and all these other things to lessen them so that it stops, maybe immediately or after some time.
Right there, Judith. This is an initiative that is going on here in the streets of Johannesburg. But let me just go back so that you can see the youths, the young ones, and also the elderly are here, just to send that message to those criminals to say, please stop criminality. And this is a message that has not only been taken out by the churches, but also the police and other communities have been out there saying that crime in South Africa has gone too high. Looking at the statistics that has been happening in the last quarter in South Africa, crime rate has shown that crime in South Africa is too high. And this community today is out here just to talk to the community members, to talk to individuals, to say crime does not pay. And also we know that crime has no criminality, like many have said. But they are not only talking to foreign nationals, they are also talking to locals to say, let's live in peace. Let's not label foreigners or immigrants who are in South Africa as those people who are committing crimes. Everyone commits crime, especially it doesn't matter your nationality. So this is the message that they are putting across. So I'll be taking you through as we go on, just to show you how the community is going to respond to this initiative today.
All right. Well, Ziziba Bongani, many thanks. We'll definitely come back to you within the hour for more updates. But we want to say thank you so much for that update. And it looks like this is going to be an event that would be happening most parts of the morning. But again, we'll come to you later on in the hour. Now we switch gears from Johannesburg, South Africa, now to in studio, where we have Favor Ituan on standby to bring you sports. Favor, EPL night.
Yeah, of course, it's EPL, and the weekend has started with an interesting one for some clubs. While some clubs are hoping to switch gears, but there's a big one later today. Chelsea against Manchester City. What a game to expect later today, being Sunday. With the Blues shine over the Sky Blues, we'll wait to see. But anyways, it's time for sport, and we'll start from home, Nigeria, where the Honorable Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Owaino, has charged Nigeria's under-20 women's national team, the Falconets, to do well and make the nation proud as they depart for Bogota, Colombia for their final preparations ahead of the FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup. The Falconets, led by head coach Christopher Danjuma, secured a place in the prestigious tournament after a series of impressive performances in the qualifiers. Now, Eno, in his message to the team, expressed confidence in their abilities and encouraged them to surpass their previous best achievement. Having spent weeks in intensive training at the National Stadium in Abuja, the team will now embark on a 2-week training camp in Bogota. Nigeria faced tough competition in Group D against Korea, Republic, and Germany, of course, Venezuela. All right, we wish them the very best of luck as we look to see how well they can fly the Nigerian flag at the World Cup. Still talking football, Rwanda head coach Thorsten Spittler has released a provisional 36-man squad for the side's 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers against Libya and Nigeria. The squad is dominated by players plying their trade in the Rwandan Premier League. Defender Emmanuel Imashimiwe, who plays for Cyprus club AEL Limassol, is the biggest star in the team. Spittler is expected to reduce the squad before the qualifiers. The Amavubi will face Libya at the Tripoli Stadium on Wednesday, September the 4th. Rwanda will then host the Super Eagles of Nigeria at the Amahoro Stadium on Tuesday, September 10th. All right, big time ahead for the Rwandan side, and of course, we hope to see how they deputize against the Super Eagles and of course the Libyan side. And now to Europe, Bayer Leverkusen won the German Cup on penalties against Stuttgart after needing a late equalizer to avoid defeat. Xabi Alonso's side went 51 games unbeaten at the start of last season, only losing the Europa League final to Atalanta as they won the German double, but they were 2 minutes away from a surprise defeat in their first game of the 2024-25 season at their home ground by last season's Bundesliga's runners-up. Now, this is Leverkusen's 5th major trophy in their history after last season's German League and Cup, the 1993 German Cup and the 1988 UEFA Cup. Also notable was this being the first German Super Cup since 2011 not to involve Bayern Munich, who finished 3rd in last season's Bundesliga. All right, congratulations to Victor Boniface and Nathan Teller of Nigeria. That wraps it up on Sports Update, and favor it over now to Judith, standing by.
Say thank you. I'm looking forward to tonight. Please don't crash it. You're coming back to work on Monday. Well, stick with us. We're going to show a break. When we come back on the other side, we'll bring you breakfast headlines, and afterwards, plenty more inside of Breakfast Express. Stay with us. I'll bring you headline news starting at this hour by telling you that the former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi has called on the government to declare war against insecurity following incessant reports of kidnapping sweeping across the country. In a statement on X on Saturday, Obi called for bold action, collective resolve, and a united front against insecurity. His outcry comes less than 24 hours after the kidnapping of the Anambra State Commissioner for Youth's Development, Patrick Agamba, and his wife, who were kidnapped at the Kogi axis on their way to Abuja for the wedding of Governor Chukwuma Soludo's daughter. The commissioner's kidnapping incident comes hours after police authorities said that about 20 medical students had been kidnapped in Benue State while heading to Enugu State. The federal government has announced plans to subsidize electricity in universities and public health institutions under Band A feeders. Now, this was disclosed by the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, during a recent radio interview in Ibadan. The government's decision comes after universities and public hospitals complained of skyrocketing electricity bills following the removal of subsidies for Band A customers. The institutions had seen their bills increase significantly, with the University of Lagos and Lagos University Teaching Hospital receiving a joint bill of 280 million naira for May, up from less than 100 million naira previously. The government subsidy will not apply to private businesses operating within these institutions. In the meantime, in a bid to find a lasting solution to the recurring fire outbreaks in Lagos, experts assess critical safety measures. And News Central's Adebola Adedigba has the details.
Lagos, a bustling metropolis, has long grappled with a relentless adversary, fire. It's a recurring narrative of flames that seem unyielding.
From markets to churches and filling stations, the city is caught in an endless cycle of flames. On November 5th, 2019, the popular Balogun market on Martin Street was engulfed in flames, with goods worth millions of naira reduced to ashes. At least 5 buildings were caught in an inferno on January 29, 2020. The blaze reportedly was sparked by a man pouring petrol into a running generator. Traders preparing for the festive season on December 16, 2021 were met with devastation as their shops and merchandise were consumed by fire.
In a place like church, for example, have a safety plan. Have your safety plan, let it be documented, let it contain all your list of fire safety equipment, and in case you don't have, buy all this fire safety equipment. In your church offices, have fire alarm system, have fire extinguishers, and then maintain proper housekeeping, especially in your technical areas where electrical gadgets are stored. Let there be proper housekeeping. Don't let there be cables lying around, and have an evacuation plan, because a church is a public area. There are a lot of people that are always coming. When there is fire, they can be stampeded. So have a very good evacuation plan, and have someone that have been trained to follow it in case of an emergency. Also check for fuel leaks regularly. Make sure there's no leaks. Control your oil spillage. If there's spillage of oil or fuel on the floor, make sure you pour full extinguisher on it so that it cannot be ignited. And then organization is very important. You see most times in Nigeria, especially when there's fuel scarcity, you see cars blocking exit and everybody coming in to buy fuel. No, let there be organization, because in case of emergency, vehicles cannot run, and then fire service vehicles cannot access the place. So,
on March 28, 2023, the news once again carried the tragic story of 5-story building in Balogun Market ravaged by flames. 9th April 2024, about 14 buildings were affected by a fire outbreak in Dosomo Market in Idumota area of Lagos Island. More recently, on a Thursday morning, August 8, 2024, a fire explosion razed Mobil Oil Nigeria, a filling station located on Obafemi Awolowo Road in Ikeja. The incident led to destruction of gas tanker, cars and buses. In another tragic event, the headquarters of Christ Embassy Church in the Oregun area of Lagos was gutted by fire, resulting in significant damage to the property. Yet again, a fire outbreak that affected 14 buildings occurred in Dosomo Market in the Idumota area of Lagos State on 9th April 2024. Though the flames have been doused, a burning question lingers. What critical safety measures must churches, markets and filling stations adopt to prevent such devastating fires, ensure rapid emergency responses, and protect lives and properties?
Now, for markets, place and filling station looks similar, because we have numbers of people recorded everyday activities there, and it's confined to a building. So what you are expected to do is, one, unplug all the electrical gadgets whenever you are leaving the church or you are leaving your shop, alright? So then regular checking of aging cables and connections should be regularly checked. Using of substandard materials when you are doing your wiring stuff, your installation in your church or in your shop, to avoid using quack technicians. Go and make use of professionals. Then the filling station, you need to stop all the vehicles from operating, that is running. Stop the engine while you want to refill their tank, and also avoid smoking in the filling station premises. Also the phone calls, you minimize, don't even use phone call when you are refilling, especially when you are dealing with LPG, which is very, very volatile and a very good explosion. Our emergency toll-free line 767-0112.
It is hoped that with stringent fire safety measures in place, Lagos tail of flames will finally be extinguished. In Lagos for News Central, Adebola Adeduba.
And that's all we can take for breakfast headlines on Breakfast Extra. I am Judith TB. We'll take a short break. When we come back on the other side, we go behind the curtain call and find out more about performance art in Nigeria. Stay with us.
And welcome back, and yes, I'm still here. Welcome to Creative Corner, the segment where we delve into the vibrant world of art and culture, exploring the stories behind the creative minds shaping our society. And today we're going beyond the glitz and glamour of the stage to explore the fascinating world of performance art. From the emotional depth of a stage performance to the intricate planning and creativity behind the scenes, performance art is so much more than what meets the eye.
So in the world of performance art, every gesture, every line, every movement is a carefully crafted piece of a larger story. But what happens after the curtain falls? What challenges and triumphs define the lives of those who bring these performances to life? And so today, we're joined by an exceptional guest who has dedicated their lives to stage, and that is none other than Joshua Alabi. He is a visionary, producer, and of course a CEO and creative director at Kiniso Creative. There we go. Creative entrepreneur. Joshua, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Joshua,
you for inviting me. Good morning.
So I hear it's Kiniso. Is that correct?
Kiniso.
Kiniso.
Yes,
what does that mean?
Judas, it's kill Yoruba, why don't you?
What does he mean?
That's okay.
Kiniso is what is he saying?
What's he saying?
What are you saying?
So that's beautiful. So performance art, and they're performing, and then the thing is
the interpretation.
Yes, interpretation.
Oh, I get it.
That's so genius.
So it's about what are we saying? What do we have to say? Nigeria is a big country. We have many things to say. So how do we want to say it that it will make sense?
I've got a big question for you. Performance art, from what I remember as a child, National Theatre was a hub. It was like Christmas to go to the National Theatre. It was such a beautiful structure and everything, and the people meeting a performer was like meeting Michael Jackson. Does that still happen? Is it still as big and elaborate an experience as it used to be in the 80s/90s, in the early noughties? Not so sure.
Not anymore, sadly. With the advancement of film and technology, live art has, received that huge decline over the years. But of course, I think generally, any country without a vibrant economy, theatre would find it difficult to exist there.
And that's what's happening in Nigeria?
Yes, it's about, marketing, about visibility, and also pocket share, mind share.
You put it so aptly, because when you think about the other countries that appreciate, stage performance and productions and performance art, countries like the Britain, which is the UK, which has like a very large, audience, and they invest well in stage performance and performance art as well. When you think about France or even Russia and all the other European countries, Eastern European countries, and even in Asia, those countries are countries that have their economy is viable, it's thriving, and so persons have enough, disposable income to want to go see a stage play and really invest or indulge in such activity. And so it makes me wonder about yourself, a producer who is creating innovative stage productions, and you're going in performance art. Does that deter you? What are the challenges then do you face in financing your projects, getting actors, directors, stage
or even
stage
just being
design,
inspired to
just being
continue.
inspired to even continue?
I think the inspiration is always there, even though sometimes you're also inspired by these challenges, and art is always about reinventing oneself and reinventing the stories, and how else do we want to say it? But of course, while you were even talking about countries that are viable economically, there's also some countries have found it to become as a tool for resensitization, for awareness, for social impact and development. So you'd find countries like Germany, like the Netherlands, of course, like France, that theater, stage plays, performance art has been inculcated into, is now part of the curriculum. So every child from early years, so they call it early years theater, so from age 0, one until, you know, whenever you have to study theater, you have to go to the theater to see plays. And the difference is clear.
Yeah.
But, I mean, coming back to your question, or questions, it's such a challenge. But I think one thing theater producers, theater directors in Nigeria, one thing we've, you know, made up our mind to do is the fact that with or without the people, with or without the government, we'll make theater. So what we've been creating over the last few years are performances that are flexible enough to be taken to spaces where people are, right? So if the people do not come to the theater, let's take theater to them. So for example, you find our own space in Ikeja. We have a creative hub. We make theater there. It's not a theater space. You go to the Terra Culture just at the lawn outside,
at the lawn outside.
Just beside the restaurant. You make theater there. And you go to several other restaurants around Lagos where people gather, where people sit to eat. So that's really about how do we make this work? Because as part of our research, several millions of Nigerians do not know that theater exists.
Yeah, that's actually very true. I was going to say, you mentioned all these little hubs, but then again, let's go back to the original hub, the National Theatre. It seems derelict right now. It seems that there's no attention from the government there. At one time there was, but they wanted to sell it. If they had, would that have brought theatre back? Would it have been to the advantage of practitioners? Privatization. Do we need to privatize theatre in Nigeria to perhaps maybe touch the fringes of what Broadway is?
Yes, that's, I think, 1% of this entire conversation. But if that was the case, if that were to be the case, if they had, you know, succeeded in selling off that entity, theatre would maybe have died.
It would have died?
Yes.
Oh, and you have to elaborate on that.
Yes, I am saying this because we have to look at theatre, firstly, as a tool, of course, as a product, right? You invest in a business, you want to make some money. But sadly, that's not the case with theatre. Countries that have successfully made theatre a homegrown industry, and a successful industry, they've invested some certain amount. So aside from the national, let's use the UK, for example. So you have the National Theatre, right? You have the National Theatre of England, you have the National Theatre of Scotland, and you have you have the National Theatre of Wales as well. But you would see how government has invested and supported independent producers and programmers and companies to own their own spaces. I mean, it's like the media industry is buoyant because you have spaces, you have News Central, you have several other stations. So you want to make
Thanks
theatre.
for not mentioning.
Definitely, definitely. So you have other spaces. You want to make theatre a business, but there's nowhere to consume theatre. So how do you even make a business out of it? So I think the first thing is for the government. Yes, the National Theatre is there. It must be. I mean, now with what the Bankers Committee and the federal government with what they're doing, we're waiting. We're hoping that it's in the favor. It's all in favor of those who make theatre. But it's also important that while that is going on, private investors, private individuals are also encouraged and invested in to make more theatre spaces. That's when theatre would be successful. That's when we can count, look at, make better products and then make profit. If not, the National Theatre can do nothing because there's just the main bowl, which sits about, I think, almost 5,000. There's the cinema halls. There used to be the cinema hall, I think 1 and 2. Now it's been broken into cinema hall 1, the big one, and then 2 smaller ones, and then the banquet hall. And then smaller spaces. But we have, in Bariga alone, there are over 5,000 theatre companies.
What?
Within that local government. Yes, over 5,000 theatre companies.
So theatre is thriving underground. Who is going to these small theatres? Who are?
The community.
The community.
Yeah.
Is there money being made?
It just took me back to Jos, or rather to Kaduna State, during my time in Kaduna. So there was a small, and also in Jos as well, there's a thriving, there's a thriving creative economy that is there in Jos. And also, surprisingly, Kaduna, Angwanrimi, Angwa Sunday, Sabo, all those outskirts of the town, my cousin was a b-boy, which is, the b-boying dance, which was on the Olympics at the time.
Although that was not a sport in the Olympics. It was
can't be tumbling on your head as if you can tumble on your head.
You were saying.
But anyway, but seeing that and also being able to see people do spoken word and, and one-man show and one-woman show and performances, and young people were there. They were paying 500 naira, 700 naira, 1,000 naira, and then you get, I think, a free bottle of Zobo and Chin Chin. And it was fun. And this was in Kaduna State. I'm talking 2013, 2014. I would never forget it. And just watching it, and I'm like, goodness me, I am wasting so much time in Lagos. Just seeing how these people are having this balance and value for life. They're not going to a bar, or they don't think there's no mall. There's no mall at the time in Kaduna. And so that was their own side attraction. And everyone's phone is put down. No one's recording. They're really enjoying themselves and having a wonderful time. There was a book club behind the corner. And so it begs to ask the question about those on-the-ground acts and all those underground performers. They start young with that passion, but at the end, it always fizzles out. You know, I would say, for example, my cousin, it always fizzles out. It would, you know, it would die. How then, without the involvement of the government, because hey, the government, how then can private sector, how then can individuals, production companies continue to groom this talent and still keep them interested, or, and what's the word? Besides interested, just to still keep that fire going. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, and I'll still come back to the government.
You
know that Nigeria is a stubborn country in every ramification. When we're not compelled, I mean, of course, the government cannot do everything. However, it's part of the government's mandate to find a way for the corporate sector to support theatre. Like the corporate sector is now supporting, you know, the construction of roads and the building of schools or funding of certain schools. That's how the government is able to, you know, so far in the last few years, several festivals, individuals, creative organizations, they've been able to, of course, penetrate into the private sector to fund their festivals, to fund their project, but it's only been on a projectized format. You know, you have this annual festival, and the corporate or the corporate organization gets to fund that festival once a year, while there are several other projects going on, several other initiatives, several other festivals. So I think with a structure from the Ministry of, you know, Creative Economy, Arts and Culture, if they could create a structure where it could be through tax rebates or something, that the corporate world is made to invest into the creative sector, just as, you know, you have banks doing with Nollywood now. It's that mediation. Okay. So I think what I mean as the stage industry, that's what we need, that sort of mediation, because not everyone is able to walk into a corporate company, corporate organization, you know, provide value or clarify the kind of value that you're bringing to the table. Of course you are, but there are levels to these things.
I've got a very interesting question for you. You know, coming off of something that you said earlier about the thriving on the ground 5,000 theatre companies in Bariga alone. I remember seeing the Wole Soyinka's Lion and
the Jewel.
And the Jewel at National Theatre. And it was a big thing back in the 80s, but there was just one forum, and that was the forum. It was big. Now we have 5,000 local buddies who are interested in theatre, and it's not making that much of a sound. I didn't know that they existed. What are we missing out here? Why is that big disparity? One firm making so much noise, 5,000 in Bariga alone, and not much being heard about.
5,000 is a huge number.
It is, and I know because we have, you know, we have the association. We have them in Surulere, we have them in Bariga, we have them in Festac, we have them all across Lagos, and of course, not just even in Lagos, across the country. So we found a way to try to connect with each other and to work with each other independently, you know, and that's our own way of supporting each other and developing the industry, because we believe that with marketing, with visibility, with, I mean, not proper PR, but at least to the level at which we're able to do it, it will change something. So you talk about this plays. I mean, I could easily count the biggest plays in the last 10 years. And saying I can easily count means that there's not a lot of them. But you go into other countries, and it's not about the comparison. It's really about, from the outside, a lot of people believe that Nigerian theatre, the stage industry, it's really thriving. But it's because they only get to see 0.1% of the quality of the work that we make. Musicals and theatre companies like Kinning Soul, because we tour every year, and we make sure we're in Europe or we're somewhere in Africa. So people believe that's what's happening. There's always big theater, interesting works going on, all over the country. I think, generally, it's really about, the money, right? With the advancements of technology, with the way branding and marketing goes now, you want to make a play and you want to make your profit in return. You have to spend double or triple of what you're investing in the production into marketing. That's the only way to make it back. So it's really, really about the money, even at the community level.
Did they get that marketing in the past? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they got that marketing in the past.
Because they had the funding.
Yes, they had the funding. And in times where they didn't have that funding, there wasn't so much distraction. You know, like the times of the Ogunde, the Duro Ladipo, as you mentioned, in the 70s and the 80s, even in the 90s.
80s,
there wasn't
70s. I'm not that old.
You know,
trying to make me older.
Yeah, at that time, there wasn't distraction of social media, or Nollywood wasn't, huge. It wasn't thriving.
Huge,
So theater, performances, and concerts, of course, were that's the only thing we could feed off to improve our social life. But now there's so much, so we all have to compete. And to compete and thrive in that space, even at the community level, you still need some sort of funding to... I'll give you one last example. We run a festival called KIFT. The festival is dedicated to age 2 to 18. So we make works and bring international performances and workshops from across the world for age 2 to 6, from 7 to 12, and so on. And sometimes we have to pay some schools to bring their children to watch theater and to learn workshops.
Say that again?
Yes, sometimes we have to pay
for their involvement.
Yes, for them to bring 200 children to enjoy, to support their development. Of course, some schools in Lagos, they appreciate the arts and they know the impact on the child's development.
Creativity,
so you can imagine where we are.
I have to ask about, the advent of social media, particularly the advent of streaming platforms and the movie industry, especially with new Nollywood being on streaming platform. Has that had any impact in the creative space, especially for performance art? Has it been difficult because of this, because of now the proliferation and the advent of these platforms made it difficult for you to hire talents, into your performance art, into your piece, whether stage play or musicals, whether it's actresses, actors, just what has it been like, especially for hire and just the impact of it?
Yes, thank you for saying that, because I'm currently having to handle a certain episode.
Right.
Yes, it has had its negative and positive impact. And starting with the negative impact, you talked about hiring now. Yes, people we get to hire to perform in stage plays, who will be paid moderately, now want more than the moderate amount, because when it's compared to a project for TV or film, the gap is different. It's really wide. So it's really affecting hiring on the part of crew and, actors, and also even on the audience part. People now feel great to sit at home and watch what they have to watch from the comfort of their homes. People now do not always feel the need to want to walk out to go all the way when they calculate transportation and everything to see theater. But on the positive side, it's also good for us in a certain way. The fact that theater actors now, are now, getting popular, getting famous on TV, on streaming platforms, it's helping the theater industry little by little, because now people want to see their face on stage, right? So you have people like Moshood Fatah, who's, who's one of us, and Uzuamaka, lots of them who are doing interesting, plays, who are doing interesting films. So they're feeding off, we're able to feed off their popularity. It's a synergy, their popularity and their work on screen. We're able to feed, use that as part of our marketing for the work, but it's still at a very low pace.
But you can't converge all of those now, can you? How can you converge performance art and social media, for instance, which would actually be helpful, I'm thinking, but I just can't find
the correlation between the two?
Correlation, yeah, that's a
leverage of social media?
How can you leverage on social media to make performance art louder?
Yeah, it's possible in many ways. And for us, I mean, we're thinking people at a hub. We're always thinking, what's the next thing? And of course, since I think 2018, we've been on this conversation. How can we leverage digital technology generally, not just social media, to advance the work we do in the arts? In 2020, we tried something called home theater. And we took 20 of the plays we had done in the past and picked certain excerpts and we filmed them professionally in a very, very good way. 2 minutes, 5 minutes excerpts in a way that each film, each show could stand on its own. We didn't want to make a theater show, we didn't want to make a film, we wanted to make something in between. And we made about 25 episodes of those, shared on social media, on YouTube, on all the platforms, Instagram, and it was very good. I mean, it was successful partly because we were all at home. We wanted to consume something. You know, we had all the time in the world. However, we didn't stop. We continued our research, and in 2022, we had concluded our research on how we're able to stream theater, make some sort of mixed reality digital theater, not just stream to people in Nigeria, but across the world. But we found it, but we didn't have the money. Then we found a collaborator from the Netherlands who had been thinking of something like this as well. So we collaborated. And in 2022, 2023, early last year, we made a work called Dear Beloved Friend. And it's the first digital mixed reality theater performance from Africa. And it was so loud, so we could stream to the Netherlands, we could stream to Denmark and other parts of Europe. And just as you could decide after the show to walk into the cinema to see a film, we made it that way. So anyone could walk to the
So that's taking advantage of these platforms right now. But you also said something which I also want to jump on now, the international influence. Fela is a Broadway show. It makes millions outside of Nigeria. What do they owe the Nigerian space, the Nigerian theater space? Taking our culture, taking our character, taking everything and showcasing it outside of Nigeria. And we're left here, we're like, yeah.
They owe us nothing.
They owe us nothing.
Yeah. Fela was here some years ago.
And there's our story. It's our story to tell and not theirs to stage.
Yes,
I mean,
but they got the permission.
Fela was here years ago, but on profit. They also earned from that note. Yeah. So they're ripping not just the character, not just the story, not just the legend, but also our money as well, because they come to sell it back to us. It's our story. You're not worried, but I'm worried. Why aren't you worried?
Yes, I'm worried, but I've moved away from being worried to doing something, right? And I say they owe us nothing because, yes, for them, it's a business venture. Of course, it's about the art, it's about the culture. If we're to continue this conversation in this direction, we would say so much about, Woman King and those movies. They are all our stories, right? It's not just in Nigeria, but across Africa. But people like me, I do not want to wait until they come tell the story, so I'll take the story to them. And that's why in my conversation, I'm always talking about how much we're collaborating, how much we're making work, how much we're touring. This is the space, so we either have to decide to do something,
right?
Or
I must say that that art or performing art has evolved. When you look at the history of it, there was a time where there were cultural troupes that would go from one state to another, one village to another, one community to another, and they would do these plays and tell the stories and folktale. It's now evolved over time. But do you think that the performance art and the creative industry has moved with the time, putting into concept just what you did with that stage play with the Netherlands or the group in Netherlands? And also, too, I noticed that all of the major plays happen only during the festive period, Christmas, and is that, do you think that that's enough? Because if it happens only during this period, and is it catered to the IJGBs then?
No, and of course, I think we all know why more people produce during the festive period.
Why?
It's because, I mean, that period people want to go out with families and friends. People want to spend money.
Make experiences.
Yes, exactly, make experiences. So that's why you find more plays during Easter or during Christmas or New Year. Because the belief is that that's when people want to come out in huge numbers to consume performances, to see theater. Of course, that's not a good model. We cannot survive based on that.
Okay.
However, there's still a lot going on all through the year, from January until December, but you don't find them on the big stage. because the big stage that we have, even though we don't have so much, they're so expensive.
Cost.
Super.
Why, please, do I have to pay for, I have a family of 3, almost 100,000
naira. That's a family of 3 is already complaining.
to see a Nigerian play. And don't forget her question about the traveling.
Just traveling.
Sorry about that. Let's do that one first, actually.
The traveling theatre is not, it's still happening. Some small companies, but ultimately, when you look at this, the state of security in the nation, and you look at, because I said earlier, theatre can only thrive as much as the country
is thriving itself.
Yes. So when you look at security, so many people, for us, we've toured across Nigeria, but the last tour across Nigeria we had was in, I think, 2019, 2020, earlier. Since then, we couldn't go on. So our tour has been restricted to Lagos only. And if you find companies in Benin and in those spaces, that's how they've been able to do it. Security, lack of funding, and of course, as I said, the distraction of social media, the fact that people have so much going on, so much to do. So theatre isn't in our system, isn't in our psychology as a people yet.
Okay.
It's only seen as a product for the privileged. So until we do more, we receive more support across different levels.
Somehow you just did something. You
just segued into.
You just agreed that the plays during the festive period are for IJGBs.
Yeah, the privileged. You said.
The privileged,
which means it costs a bit of a stipend, and I might not be able to afford it. So real quickly on the cost,
The cost remains the cost because the country, everything is expensive. The spaces are expensive. Putting up lights, putting up costumes, getting technicalities, sound, and it's super expensive. And I tell you, it is really expensive. So no Nigerian theatre has been able to get back all its capital from gate takings. None.
Oh, Joshua, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Joshua Alabi, he is a visionary producer and the CEO and creative director of Kininso Creative. Kininso, what are you talking about? You're watching Breakfast Extra right here on News Central TV. Stick around. Coming up next, we will finally bring you the dailies for today. Don't go anywhere. And you're welcome back. You're still watching Jinx.
Jinx on that again.
There we go. You're watching Breakfast Extra right here on News Central TV. It's time for us to bring you the dailies.
Yes.
If you missed out on all the dailies, stick around because we have quite the lineup for you, starting with the Sunday Independent as we pull that up on the screen. Sunday Independent there, the very first big one that comes at you. Agitation for new constitution gains momentum. You can find that story on page 2. Peter Obi, Nema, Nans deploy FG's inability to contain ceaseless abductions. That story is on page 8. Presidential jet, Chinese firm, an imposter, Mosun alleges, says the Chinese company lost all 4 cases in Nigerian court. Urges federal government to treat company like PNID. You can find the story on page 3. Activities. Others welcome withdrawal of counter-subversion bill. Okay, proposal for conduct of all elections in one day. That story is on page 2 at the bottom there. Olympics. Federal government under pressure to redeploy sports minister. Others. That story is on page 3. When you go to the top there, NYSC demobilizes 54 UNICAL graduates. That story is on page 5. Opposition lawmakers expose plot to aid sacked Rivers lawmakers to destabilize Governor Fubara. And that story is on page 8. Tinubu, Shetima, Ganduje to host Young Progressive Leaders Summit. You can find that story on page 7. And that's all the headlines headlines on the front page of the Sunday Independent.
Moving now to this day for a Sunday. Big headline and meets you first. Amosun Chinese firm dispute is between 2 Chinese companies like P&ID scam. Says Zhang Fu lied about light against China-Africa Investment FXE and insists his government acted based on requests of Chinese government. And also, I am ready to provide documents to assist the federal government, says Benga Daniel. This story is on page 5. And of course, we've been talking plenty about this Chinese, instance from the papers or the news. Outrage over abduction of 20 medical students in Benue. Governor Alia Pate NMA lawmakers kick. IG deploys rescue team. We hope that sees results soon. At the very top for this day on a Sunday, Tinubu to Chief of Staff ensure cut is cost of governance. No large delegation to UNGA meetings. And that's about it for this day newspaper for a Sunday.
Oh, yes, indeed. Let's switch over now to the Sunday Punch. And the very first one, still on the Chinese company. Presidential jets as ex-Ogun governors unite against Chinese company. Tag the firm scammer. Stay away from foreign negotiation. Federal government warns states. And that story is on page 3. At the top there, it's 2,140 Nigerians kidnapped in 7 months as insecurity worsens. That story is on page 15. Some people see me as unserious because of my tattoos, and that's where Mr. Farouk Aregbesola, Oreagba. Why did I say Aregbesola?
I don't know.
Oh, there's a teacher in my secondary school whose name was Farouk Aregbesola.
Get with the reality.
I'm sorry. I do that a lot.
Welcome back.
Mr. Farouk Oreagba.
There you go.
Page 12 and 14 there, you can find that story. Fact check, is 25% of British NHS workforce Nigerian? Find that story on page 4. Now, at the side there, Amnesty International demands release of 1,000 protesters. That story is on page 5. Why Nigerian indigenous languages risk extinction? That story is on page 28. We can no longer eat beans, agege bread due to price hike. And that's from Lagosians there. That story is on page 16 and 17. Fake unregistered asthma inhalers flood markets after GSK's exit. That story is on pages 16 and 17. Bridge of Fear, how hoodlums turned third mainland into danger zone. That story is on page 29. At the bottom there for page 5, no plan to remove Ganduje, says APC. Also on page 5, federal government promises varsities, hospitals, electricity subsidy. You can find these and more on the Sunday Punch.
Indigenous languages risk extinction.
Like my mother language is going.
I was going to ask you to say something in your
Yes, I can now. Alonga.
And that's all, folks. Till next time. The Sunday Tribune next. Fresh twist in presidential jet seizure saga. Ex-Governor Amosun says Chinese companies claim another P&ID scenario. Explains how correspondence between Nigeria and Chinese government vindicated FG and Ogun State. At the top, some Nigerian governors operate as imperial majesties. Okelemosu, ADC presidential candidate, says, and Tinubu bars non-essential officials from attending UN General Assembly. Well, let's cut down the cost, I guess, is what he's trying to bring here. At the bottom here, Tinubu's executive order on oil, gas have impacted growth, say the NNPCL officer. And at the very bottom, security operatives comb forest in search of abducted medical students. Let's hope we find results.
Speaking about results, let's switch now to Sunday Telegraph, where NAS under fire over pay and poor legislative work. 21 million naira senators pay, choking, breeding inequality, says NLC. They are worse than rubber stamp, Odin Kalu, and also at the bottom there, IGP's tenure extension, greatest service to Nigeria, SAN. You can find that story on pages 2 and 4. Mpox, commissioners move to contain future outbreak of diseases. That story is on page 30. At the bottom there, Rivers, Fubara Amechi's alliance unsettles Wike's loyalists. That story is on page 3. Exclusive, ICPC detains TEF fund boss Echeno over 7 billion naira fund diversion. Taken on bail by federal PAMSEC yesterday. He was in office on Friday, TEF fund spokesman. That story and more, I think, is an exclusive. You can find that on page 3 of the Sunday Telegraph. At the bottom there, we're not selling employment slots. NNPC Limited warns. says Kyari, working hard to shore up oil output. That story is on page 3 and 25. Bandits demand 50 million naira ransom to release abducted Unimed Unijos medical students. That story is on page 6. And at the top, 2027, why PDP replaced Araki Emmanuel with Onyelola and Akimi. Reconciliation disciplinary committees to assuage fears of party hijack. That story is on page 5. Nigeria-UK diplomat role heightens over Heathrow, Slot, and Broglio. And that story is on page 5. And that's all on Sunday Telegraph. Pick it up. Go read the stories.
And I think we have the matrix here. This is a presidential jet stories across it's different iteration in every paper this morning. Here on the matrix, you have this presidential jet, more facts revealed. It's Chinese against Chinese dispute. Amosu says, leave us out of it. Says Zhongfu sought to demarket China-Africa investments. Benga Daniel seeks an amicable resolution to the dispute. And FG warns states against unilateral foreign negotiations. Hear, hear. At the top, Tinubu directs reduction in Nigeria's delegation to UN General Assembly. And land border imported rice still banned, says customs. Here now, don't come through with it. And Egbetoku fumes orders rescue of medical students abducted in Benue State. At the bottom, how NPC upheld Tinubu elections, General Abdusalami reveals. And NAFDAC raises alarm over substandard bread and other products. Judith, sorry, substandard bread. So I'm confused here.
I know a brand.
Substandard bread, it's that bad now.
Yeah, I know a brand.
I'm very unsure how to feel about substandard bread because it's...
how you know it's substandard is if you buy it and put it on the shelf for 1 week and it doesn't go bad.
It doesn't go bad?
Yeah, and you can still eat it.
So that's a good thing?
No, it's a bad thing.
So it's got
preservatives?
Preservatives.
Yeah, that's not good for you. It's substandard.
Because I would have thought that was a good thing, but apparently...
It's not.
Yeah. Oh, well. So earlier you were speaking with Bongani in South Africa over the situation there.
Yes, I was.
I hear that we have Bongani now. So let's carry on with Bongani. Good morning and welcome again on Breakfast Extra. If you'll give us a situation report with the protest that's going on in South Africa currently. We're hoping. Yes, there she is. Morning, Bongani. So if you give us a situation report currently, what's happening at the protest?
Hello?
Yes, Bongani. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mazino, good afternoon. We are still at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but we had quite a lengthy walk, and it wasn't pleasant, but it's good for the cause because the awareness about crimes in South Africa and also drug abuse. We know that it has been said that South Africa is one of the countries that has the highest rate of drug abusers. So these youngsters and elders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in South Africa has joined the cause to come out and voice their concerns about what is happening. But with me, I have the young ones. There's this young girl who recited a beautiful poem about drug awareness. Let me just bring her just to say a few words about that same poem, how she raises awareness, especially about drug abuse for the young ones in South Africa. Good morning. Can you please recite that your poem again?
Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about an environmental problem that affects many people in our society. I want to talk about cannabis abuse. While cannabis may be legal in some places, it can also be addictive. And addiction is a disease that can affect anyone, regardless of their age, background, or social status. So what can we do? We should educate everyone and ourselves about cannabis abuse, and we should also encourage open discussions about cannabis abuse. Together, we can create a world where individuals struggling with abuse may receive compassion and support rather than stigma and shame. Let's break the silence and break the cycle of abuse. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, Mazino, young people coming out there saying, let's break this silence of cannabis also known as Daha. So many young people are falling victims of Daha across the world, not only in South Africa. But let me also bring someone just to speak about this event today. Good afternoon, and why is this event important, bringing along especially young people?
Afternoon, ma'am. How are you? The event is very important because it touches young people. As young people, we understand it is our peers who are suffering. Therefore, we need to come out and talk to them and tell them and give them hope that there is hope in Christ. As young people, we are an example to them to say to them, touch not, taste not, handle not. Colossians 2 verse 21.
Yes, it's good to see churches coming out and also speaking so loud, raising their voices about what is a concern, especially in the world. Let me talk, also bring someone else just to talk about this event. It's a very good event, and we have seen outside you giving out some posters, speaking to people out. How has the community welcomed this initiative?
The community was very welcoming. And you'll be surprised to realize that the people that we met, most of them are under the influence of drugs. So as leaders, we realize that we are hit by the pandemic. We cannot keep quiet any longer. Our people are attacked by this pandemic of drugs. So we want to tell people that remember, you were created by God. Your body is the temple of the living God. So stop drugs, stop drug abuse. That's the motto. That's what we're going with. Thank you.
Yes, Mazino, the message is loud and clear. Stop drugs, especially to the youth, and also the crimes that are happening in South Africa. Like I said earlier on, that the march is not only about drugs, but it's also about the crimes that are happening in South Africa. We know that the locals have come out saying that foreign nationals are committing crimes. So this message also is to foreign nationals out there to say, please, let's live rather with one another in peace, and they should stop our crimes. And also this drug abuse awareness that is going on. It's a voice coming from the churches.
Well, Bongani, I want to say thank you so much for just bringing us update there. I would definitely come back to you within the hour as the event unfolds. But once again, Bongani, many thanks. Bongani Ziziba is our correspondent live from Johannesburg as churches are marching against high crime rates and drug abuse in their community. And that was all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. And that's pretty much how we close the curtain for this week's installment of Breakfast Extra. It's been Saturday and Sunday of the very best full programming just for you right here on News Central TV. But not to worry, there's plenty more, okay? You want to stay here, stay informed, stay safe, and continue to follow the station, because coming right after this, it's going to be time for In the Game. Well, in the meantime, it's goodbye from us. We'll see you Saturday morning at 8 a.m. I'm Judith at TV.
I'm Mazino Appeal, and my last words, or word, phew.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.